So the third episode of Season 9 was actually way more interesting than the previous ones, because this episode actually raises the question of legitimacy. Why is Rick in charge? Why is Maggie in charge of the Hilltop? Why is Daryl in charge of Sanctuary? Why does anyone listen to them? Where do they get their legitimacy from, and what power does it give them? Do they have the power of life and death, as Maggie has demonstrated by hanging that old guy? And these are the questions that are raised in this episode of The Walking Dead. So the first important thing that happens this episode is that Maggie and some guy are taking the Hilltop's shipment of food that was meant to be exchanged for ethanol to the Saviors. Maggie, the ruler of Hilltop, has gone with one person to make a delivery. That's unfathomably stupid because it puts her in a precarious position when a gang of saviors stops their carriage. And this guy, who is the new villain of this episode, decides to start acting like he's in charge and trying to intimidate and bully Maggie. It's just a tense meeting to foreshadow later problems that this guy is going to be leading, but this should never have happened. Maggie should be demonstrating authority as the leader of the Hilltop. She should have a force with her of some form, if nothing else to protect her from being accosted by people who openly hate them. Because at the moment, Maggie is the autocrat of the Hilltop. She is the one governing, she is the one making the executive decisions, and she doesn't have a successor. So if Maggie dies, the Hilltop falls into a succession crisis. Who's next? It becomes a power struggle, and it's probably a good thing that she did hang the old man who was constantly trying to usurp her position, because he'd be leading it. But as it is currently, Hilltop is probably left without any leadership at all if Maggie dies. And that would be very bad for Hilltop, because so far Maggie has been making very sensible decisions. The question of who makes the decisions and why is all the more important because the guy who Rick exiled turned up dead. This starts a huge brawl between the Saviors and Rick's group, with the Saviors saying, well, we're not safe, we're being attacked, we're being killed, and it appears that Rick's group is going to have to put down a Savior rebellion of some sort, which, let's be fair, they would have done really quickly, because they're the ones with the guns, and they would just start mowing down the Saviors. Just as things look like they're about to get really, really hairy, Rick comes in with a big fucking gun and tells everyone to back down. Why can Rick do this? Why do they stop? Why do they listen to him? The answer, of course, is that Rick is just the strongest character in the series, physically. He's the one who kills everyone in the end. That's how Rick runs all of this. Rick is running this like a feudal barony, and he has his trusty vassals to support him. And because Rick's the sovereign, it's Rick's job to solve the mystery of who murdered the guy from the previous episode. Because it's his job to impose law and order. He becomes convinced it's not Daryl, so they have to keep looking. For reasons unknown, Maggie is wandering around in the woods, again with just one person. Another precarious thing for the leader of Hilltop to do, given the current political climate. They find a house full of zombies, and her companion is not only worse than useless, she's a bloody liability, and Maggie has to go into beast mode, killing like half a dozen zombies with a tiny knife. I have to say I really did enjoy Maggie in this episode. This is the kind of use of their skills that they have developed for killing zombies that I want to see. Don't just give me half a dozen zombies in an open bloody road, and then tell me that they're all under a threat. When Maggie's in close combat with 4 zombies, then I feel that there might be some danger there. And it's even more satisfying to watch as she overcomes them quite handily. To further add to Rick's problems, someone attacks another one of the Saviors, mysteriously knocking them out, but we don't know who did it. Which means that Lord Rick and his nobles have to continue hunting down whoever is attacking random members of the Saviors. But the problem is, what do you do with them when you catch them?
Say we nab the perp. Then what? Who decides what happens next? Is it going to be a Gregory or a Negan?
It's a good question, and one that Rick actually has to struggle with Carol, because he's gone into hardcore All Lives Matter mode and doesn't want to see anyone else killed.
Every day since I put Negan in that cell, I have this moment. Usually right when I wake up, this feeling that I should go down there and kill him.
Do it!
To keep going, finish them all.
Yes!
And in that moment, it's all I want.
Nobody would blame you.
But then, I remember everyone we've lost.
Cuck. Daryl and Maggie are out looking for the murderer, and they come across a walker that has an arrow embedded within it, showing that Daryl is not the only person who could have murdered the bad guy from last episode. The garbage lady sneaks back to the rubbish dump and uses her walkie-talkie to contact the helicopter crew, and she's caught by the priest. She offers him the chance of going away to somewhere remote and magical where they'll have a wonderful happy life, and he says no, so she knocks him out. Rick and Carol are so dedicated that they're wandering through the zombie-infested woods at night, and Carol ends up getting taken hostage by the bad guy of this episode. He orders Rick to put down his gun and Rick complies, and then Carol stabs the guy in the shoulder, subduing him without killing him as Rick would have wanted. The episode ends with Daryl and Maggie discovering a group of their people who have captured a particular one of the saviors. This savior in particular was captured because they'd done some terrible things to the group of people.
They murdered my mother. She shot my brother right here. I needed him. He was only 11 years old.
Understandable grievances, and Rick appears to have been wildly optimistic about whether these people would simply live alongside their previous persecutors. But Maggie appeals to them, saying that Rick has said that every life matters, and they shouldn't just kill anyone, and the lady in question replies with,
We went along because we didn't think we had a choice. Until you hung Gregory. That's when we knew. Rick's rules aren't the only rules.
Indeed, Rick's rules are not the only rules. Maggie has rules too, and her rules include summary execution. This is the status quo that Maggie created. And so, even though she might believe in Rick's conception of what the good would be here, she has no choice but to walk away as they execute this savior. This episode was far more interesting than the previous ones, and I really hope the writers know what they're doing.